There's a movie that claims to be the most scary since The Exorcist. I mean, see? It says it right here on the box. But how can that be possible with a mere PG-13 rating? Don't movies have to be rated R to be scary? Well, when you put James Wan in the director's chair and hand him a script written by Leigh Whannell, you could probably ignore the ratings board and bet you're in for a good scare. Hello everyone and welcome to the Dissection, where we put you into a deep meditative state and then jump scare you by throwing a hammer into a piano. That joke will become relevant as this goes on. A PG-13 movie that could scare the socks off you and leave you wanting more. That's what 2010's Insidious was hoping to deliver on. And in retrospect, this movie was pretty groundbreaking for a number of reasons. It not only solidified Wan and Whannell's working relationship that was made famous on the previous gorefest Saw, but it also touched on a subject I feel was sorely lacking in any horror content up until that point. Astral projection, or out-of-body experiences. Or OBEs if you want to sound super smart and not condescending at all. These experiences are a real-life thing that happen to people. No, wait, come back. I'm not being woo-woo here, I'm being serious. There is a whole rabbit hole you can go down with astral projection, and while most of these practitioners will tell you that it's totally safe and there's nothing to be afraid of, there's a long-running tale of a witch or an old hag that sits on your chest and steals your soul if you dare to leave your body. So, you know, probably don't. But I think it's a very fascinating topic and one that certainly lends itself to the horror genre. So did Insidious take the ball and run with it, or did they pull a Joe Biden boarding a plane? Now before we begin, let's not get too insidious ourselves and forget our manners. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that creepy notification bell to stay updated on all things horror. ChatGPT wrote that call to action, and if it seems creepy and unrealistic, because it is! Insidious was made on a budget of around $1.5 million and made over, brace yourselves, $97 million in return. That's some serious cashola for a small budget horror film. I bet Wan and Whannell weren't wanting over that payday.
Man, shut the fuck.
It's the AI again. It's kind of ruining the whole script. We begin with a slow pan of the inside of a little boy's room, and wouldn't you know it, he's sleeping. Really, he's astral projecting, and right away there's this creepy bitch in a gown, before the title card. I mean, it's literally the opening of the movie and I'm creeped the fuck out already. Plus, who's trying to marry this lady? She looks like she's definitely in the relationship for the life insurance payout, if you know what I'm saying. After very vanilla opening credits, we see that there's a family that appears to have just moved into a new house. The mom, I guess that's the mom, I mean she's wearing pajamas like a toddler, played by Rose Byrne, walks around the extremely well-lit house and turns on the light. Seriously, this is a major pet peeve of mine. Like, did you need the extra light? Was the power of the sun not enough? She starts unpacking and gets like 5 minutes into her work. Oh no, that's fine. Take a break, dear. Not like there's a million boxes to unpack or anything. But it is really cute that her and her soon-to-be perpetually lost in cosmic space son have the same pajamas. But the cuteness is about to be wiped away as this kid delivers one of the most punishing insults a kid can deliver to their parents.
You're old now.
Yeah, maybe your mom looks old because she had to push your fat head out of her vagina. Did you ever think about that? Mom tries to make breakfast while the kids are screaming, and if you have kids, I'm sure you can sympathize with this. It is a handful to try and get anything done while you're taking care of them, and she's obviously on the phone with Verizon as well.
Speak to an agent?
Dad complains about biting wax fruit, and there goes all of Mom's hard work for this morning. Glad there's time to sit around and play the piano. It's not like there's a bunch of boxes to unpack or anything. Every time you start to write your magnum opus, the kids start crying, I swear. After Mom gets the baby down, it's time to go investigate the creepiest fuck attic. You know, just like any good horror movie, right? Dalton, played by the young Ty Simpkins, gets sick of smashing his baby shark and decides to wander up into the creepy attic with his lantern and his cape. That's a good idea. He tries to climb the ladder and turn the light on, but remember that rung that broke earlier? The whole family is completely oblivious, like he didn't just fall and hit the floor/ceiling like a wet sack of potatoes. And as he comes to, he sees some creepy shit that we don't get to see lurking in the shadows and screams out, which is finally how his parents are notified that he injured himself. And after attending to him, Renee spots her missing sheet music. Dalton got a hell of a bruise for his troubles. Better put a stake on that bad boy before you end up looking like Joanna Jędrzejczyk, am I right? Just throwing in a little woman's MMA humor for you right there. As it goes in these type of stories, the dad, Josh, played by Patrick Wilson, tells his wife Renee that anything weird must just be them settling in and it will be normal soon enough. Wish that were true. Also, you kind of get the sense that Mr. Lambert might be a bit vain with his nightly crow's feet routine.
Should write a song about me.
Like, hey Josh, why don't you share the eye cream with your wife? Look at those bags under her eyes. We see Dalton sleeping that night, a sleep he's not going to wake from for a long, long time. Lucky bastard. Josh tries to wake Dalton the next morning, only to realize that his son isn't faking being sick just to get out of school, his ass is in a coma.
technically, yes, he's in a coma.
The family tries to come to grips with the horrible news that their son is now in a coma for some unknown reason. And without any explanation from the doctors, they wait 3 months before taking their son home and realizing they may be taking care of the little sleeping boy in his bed forever. Renee's piano playing naturally takes a hit from having to attend to her son, but that damn static in the baby monitor is back too. Must be the 5G. I'm just kidding, they didn't have 5G back then. Their mobile service was actually probably pretty shit. They had those free nights and weekends though, so Renee hears some psycho saying that he wants her baby back, baby back, ribs.
I want my baby back, Chili. Baby.
And if you aren't in North America and you haven't eaten at Chili's, you have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about right now. But ghosts. Yes, there's a ghost trying to take her baby, or something. And she rushes in to soothe baby Callie. Foster, the couple's other child that you see like once in this whole movie, drops a bombshell that he's been seeing Dalton walk around at night. And I gotta point this out, whose idea was it to put their beds directly across from each other? Like, are you trying to give the only son you have left some deep-rooted trauma? I mean, Dalton doesn't care, just have him face the wall or something. Or better yet, put him in the window for Halloween and dress him up like the Crypt Keeper. You know, I realize this is really fucked up, but how hilarious would it be if you could rig a spring to pop Dalton up out of bed in a Crypt Keeper costume? Like, hey, I'm really sorry this happened to your son, but let's turn lemons into lemonade here and have some kick-ass fun on Halloween.
Now that's fucked up.
The Lambert family gets some unexpected nightly visitors, and I feel like Mr. Lambert's eye mask might be an issue if he has to throw fisticuffs with a ghost and gets all sweaty. And as I'm watching it, I'm remembering this movie has so many jump scares, like, holy shit did I forget about those. And I know it's before jump scares were a thing and overused so much in horror, and I'm not stating that as a negative thing about this movie, but dude, the volume jump when they hit those crazy piano notes is a little rude. Josh runs downstairs to find the front door ajar and an alarm going off. He ushers everyone into Dalton's room, which is probably the least safe space for them, you know, considering. And you've gotta wonder, for the last 3 months, was this sort of shit happening at the hospital? Like, were the nurses getting assaulted with 100 decibel dissonant piano chords? Makes you wonder. P.S. There's no resolution for this evening, they just kinda cut to the next day here. While changing Dalton's bed sheets, Renee finds a fat dookie. Just kidding, it's blood. But wait a second, he's not bleeding. And that's a handprint, and also loud piano noises. Renee scolds Josh for coming home late, and Josh comes up with the lamest excuse ever that he's been grading tests. Really, he's just been avoiding his family, which is odd considering they just had a recent home invasion scare, but, you know, stress affects everyone differently, I guess. Renee wakes up in a panic just as we see some shadowy figure pacing outside of her window. Oh shit, that fool's in the house now! Renee runs from the dollar store Antonio Banderas, and Josh comes to save the day. And his eye cream. This incident is enough to prompt the family to move to a new home and leave this haunted ass one behind. Now we're introduced to Lorraine, Josh's mom, played by Barbara Hershey, and Lorraine is about to help them out because literally as soon as they move into the new house, they start having weird shit happen again. Like this creepy ass ukulele song playing. But serious though, how good is this setup? Renee sees this little fucker doing the shimmy shake to the Tulip song, which, by the way, even though the original song was written in 1929, it was later popularized in 1968 by an artist named Tiny Tim. Tiptoe Through the Tulips was Tiny Tim's biggest hit, coming in at number 17 on the Billboard charts. Tiny Tim ironically became overweight and ill in his later years and suffered a heart attack in 1996. Later that year, against his doctor's advice to stop performing, he played a gala benefit show in Minneapolis where he suffered yet another heart attack and died while performing his closer, Tiptoe Through the Tulips. Now, I don't know if James Wan knew this when he decided to put that song in the movie, but goddamn if it doesn't make this already creepy-ass song creepier knowing that. So there you go. Enjoy. Renee chases this little leprechaun through the house and finds him in Dalton's room in the armoire along with, you guessed it, loud piano noises. Josh comes home to find his wife, a priest, and his mom waiting like he's about to have a fucking intervention.
What's going on here?
And this sounds like a setup to a fuck, marry, kill joke, but it's not. Or is it? Good thing Josh's mom showed up with her woo-woo nonsense or we wouldn't be able to progress the storyline. Turns out she can astral project and walk around into people's houses uninvited as well. And while she was walking through the Lambert's house, she noticed this spidery-fingered bastard hanging out around her grandkid. This triggers the most notorious jump scare in the franchise, and we are also introduced to the lipstick demon. And also, loud piano noises! They bust into Dalton's room to find his shit just thrown all over the place and him laying there on the floor. That's slightly concerning because, you know, coma? Hello? And it's enough of a scare that Josh and Renee are willing to give Josh's mom's advice a try. And before you say it, no, it's not crystals and lavender essential oil, although that might be kind of a nice change of pace from the doo-doo smell. Because, you know, the kid's in a bed. He's gotta be shitting somewhere close by. They really just gloss over that part of the story. At this point, the couple is willing to try just about anything, so they let the Mormon bargain bin Ghostbusters come and investigate their house. By the way, if you didn't know, the actors here are Angus Sampson as Tucker and Lee Winnell as Specs. Lee is also the writer of this movie and makes a lot of cameos in his work, much like Stan Lee or Stephen King. The Sunday School rejects go through the house to test it while mocking each other's proficiency, I guess is the right word, in their field. And I can't help but think that this might be a nod to The Shining. Josh's mom's psychic buddy Elise, played by the delightful Lynn Shay, shows up and while walking through the house catches a glimpse of this big goofy bastard and drops the bomb on the couple that their house isn't haunted.
It's your son.
And also explains to the couple that Dalton is an astral projector. If you aren't familiar with what astral projection is, the concept has been around for ages and takes various forms across different cultures, but really picked up steam in the hippie era of the 60s and the 70s with the spread of other Hindu practices like yoga. Now, regardless on what your personal belief is, maybe it's your soul leaving your body, maybe you can just learn to have a very vivid dream where you are leaving your body. This is a practice that goes back as far as we have written documentation. It's also adjacent to sleep paralysis. However, sleep paralysis is mostly involuntary, whereas astral projection is voluntary and you can move, like, presumably out of your body. I went pretty deep on this some years back, and while it was pretty cool to be able to get yourself into a deep, relaxed state while you were still conscious, it's not so much cool when you see shadowy figures circling your bed at night. So if you are way into seeing demons and scaring the piss out of yourself, give it a try. You never know. Maybe you'll make your own special friend. Or maybe you'll be stuck in limbo while some red-faced demon steals your body. Either way. So back to this nut job. Elise explains that Dalton traveled outside of his body and is lost in a space she calls the further. All the ghosts and creepy shit that the family has been seeing are real, and they are trying to take his body. Colostomy bag and all. Josh has a totally rational reaction and kicks everyone out of the house, which, let's be honest, he's been pretty patient this whole time. Also, I just want to point out here that the music is pretty on point. We go from this creepy violin soiree to this melancholy piano ditty.
The easier it is to possess him.
No, I'm sorry. This has gone too far.
After Josh consults his comaed son, he realizes all of these drawings the kid had been making prior to his coma totally add up with what Elise was saying, which is the deciding factor here apparently. You know, out of all of the things that happen in this movie, this is the one that irks me. Like, bro, how did you not notice all of these drawings you clearly had to take down, pack, and then hang back up in his room until just now? I mean, do I have to spell it out for you? Oh no, because he already did that. Also, don't you think if Elise was a scammer, she probably saw this too and used it to construct her elaborate story? I don't know, man. I can usually suspend my disbelief pretty well, but this scene just bugs the shit out of me. I have a 7-year-old son, and 7-year-olds don't write like that. You know who writes like that? A 30-year-old PA that has to help make this shitty set so you can segue into Act 3. Do we have some crayons? I need some fucking crayons! Yeah, I don't know, man. This scene just feels flimsy and weak to me. And it doesn't ruin the movie, but come on. We could have done better, guys. Kudos to Patrick Wilson, though, for selling it. This guy can act his dick off. Elise, with the newly attained blessing of the couple, attempts to contact Dalton via Seance while wearing some World War II gas mask. This just seems kind of kinky. Like, she could have used candles, but Elise is a little bit of a freak with a daddy complex. You know what I mean? She manages to contact Dalton and discovers that he basically got abducted by the lipstick demon, which he refers to as the man with fire on his face. The pace is really gonna pick up here for Act 3, which means more loud piano noises. You know, I take it back, this might be the most cringe scene in the whole movie. Lee Winnell writing junior high level slurs in an attempt to come across as edgy here is neither scary nor interesting, it's just cringy. Oh, hey look, Dalton's awake. He kicks the shit out of Specs while Elise attempts to exorcise the demon, but she doesn't have a crucifix or fuck all. She just screams and shakes the kid, like he doesn't already have enough medical problems. Meanwhile, Dollar Store Antonio Banderas is back and totally disregarding Renee's personal boundaries. Not while Josh is around. Just kidding, he doesn't do shit. But turns out they only needed to switch on the lights. Ghosts are afraid of lights. In all the jokes I've made on this series about someone getting injured and putting a stake on their eye, this movie really does it. Does this even work? Seems like a waste of a ribeye if you ask me. The Hardy Boys managed to capture the lipstick demon on camera using Dalton like a puppet, which is a little weird because if Elise could see him, why was she yelling and shaking the kid to leave his body? He wasn't in his body. He was... never mind. Just ignore that part. Lorraine comes back to drop more bombshells on Josh. Turns out this whole situation happened to him when he was a kid too. Seems like that should have come up before all the drams, but you know, whatevs. They needed this scene to set up the character that we see in the very beginning of the movie, the old woman, who's actually played by an old dude. That comes up later in the franchise. They also established that astral projection is an inherited trait like male pattern baldness, but it's not. If you want to go look at demons, you too are capable of this horrifying experience. Just Google it. Although I'd highly recommend staying away from any threads that are telling you to take Benadryl. So after making Josh relive his childhood trauma, they send his ass back out into the further to retrieve Dalton. He walks around this shitty place where everything has this annoying teal light and fog machine smoke, looking for his son. Meanwhile, everyone else just watches him sleep. That's not weird or anything. He chases a little boy's shadow like he's one of the treasure elves in Diablo that you can never catch. I hate those things. Realizing it's himself as a child pointing at the house where this all started, he heads towards the foreboding residence. Hey, you know, this place is pretty creepy. Seems like a good place for loud piano noises. One of the things I immediately noticed about Insidious that really differs from others in the series was the shot selection. James Wan really has a way of picking angles that make you feel uncomfortable, and later entries into the franchise have their strengths and their weaknesses. We can get into those on another dissection, but this one just has some masterful camera work that I just don't feel like the others really had. Don't you hate it when a 1950s family is sitting in the ghost version of your old living room for no apparent reason? I never really got this scene. It almost feels like it was just shoehorned in for dramatic effect, but it's just kind of confusing. This ghost is referred to as the doll girl. Like, was there a whole family murdered with a shotgun in his former house? Does that have anything to do with this story? It honestly just seems like another way to add more loud piano noises. Josh turns the corner to find the infamous red door, and also budget barrel Antonio Banderas is back. The two fight it out like they're in a Guy Ritchie movie while everyone else just watches Josh sleep. This is so awkward. It's like watching your dog dream while they twitch in their sleep as if they are running and trying to catch a squirrel. Who's a good boy? Josh is a good boy. With the help of Elise in his corner like some sort of psychic Mickey,
like the guy says, you're gonna eat lightning and you're gonna crap thunder.
Josh manages to Hadouken the spooky Spaniard back into the nothingness. Josh travels through the red door to find his son being held captive down a hallway with an absurd amount of candles. And we get this affirmation right here that the drawings were in fact of this place with the horse. Like, that's so random though. If this was something a little more specific, I'd get it. But look, he drew a picture of a horse. It must be this incredibly ornate statue we saw down the candle hallway. Come on, man. Josh reunites with Dalton just in time to scope out this creepy fuckface. If you are ever wondering what happened to Darth Maul after Obi-Wan cut his ass in half, well, he grew goat legs and started haunting this little kid. On the real though, it was kind of disappointing to find out this fool was wearing gloves. Like, he's got goat legs. Why does he have to be wearing this thing that looks like an infinity gauntlet? I wish they could have just gone full Tim Curry and Legend Demon and we could move on. Josh and Dalton escape Mecha Darth Maul and follow Renee's voice back to the new house. This turn of events causes the lights to go in and out and an earthquake. I guess ghosts cause earthquakes now too. The Hardy Boys go to investigate the strange sound in the kitchen to find loud piano noises. Oh, more over here too. We don't even get to see the scare here, we just see a dude running away from something. It kind of feels overused at this point, doesn't it? Maybe that's the joke. The ghosts are trying to get into Josh's not dead body, and in another instance where this movie just makes up rules on the fly, the dynamic duo shine their high-powered spotlights on the ghosts to make them flee. Like, I guess this makes sense, but it just seems out of the blue, right?
Yes, definitely.
The ending of this movie is just getting so silly. They're barricading doors like the ghosts are zombies, and we get this cut back and forth between the real world and the further. Josh and Dalton get separated, and oh hey, the lipstick demon is back. Meanwhile, Josh confronts the old lady that tormented him in his youth. He yells at her to leave him alone, and that's probably unimportant, right? Dalton finds his body before the lipstick demon finds him, I guess. And it's really weird how they just left this open-ended like this. Maybe they originally had another fight scene but realized that was one too many Hadoukens for a horror movie. Everything seems back to normal as the Hardy Boys pack up their stuff. Josh and Elise have a moment to reflect on the last 30 or whatever years these loud piano noises have been happening. But Elise seems spooked suddenly.
What?
She takes a cheeky photo of Hashawa when he's not looking, which enrages him, because he's a rational human being. Time to choke a bitch, I guess. Those photographers that stand out front at Disneyland better watch out for this guy. Renee comes in to find Elise dead as fuck, and we get a nice little flashback to what Elise saw right before she got Ezra Millard. Turns out all Josh is yelling at this creepy wedding gown lady, who's really a dude, was in vain. His body is now possessed by she, him, they, whatever. It's a pretty great ending to a movie that at the time was really groundbreaking. Keep in mind that Insidious came out at the height of the buzz around Paranormal Activity. It seemed like most horror movies were trying to recreate the found footage craze, and Insidious took a bold approach and came up with an idea that was pretty unique at the time. Even though movies like Eternal Evil explored the topic of astral projection back in 1985, it's definitely a subject that lends itself to the horror genre and is still pretty underutilized to this day if you ask me. But all the praise aside, rewatching Insidious with a critical eye, some of the choices just seem downright goofy. Like all of the loud piano noises and just the way a lot of the scares are set up. And it's hard to tell if this is just because these tropes have been overused and grown stale since the movie was released, or if the goofiness of this movie was just overshadowed by the fact that this was such a breath of fresh air at the time. You know, since it wasn't another shaky handheld camera found footage movie. I think that watching Wan's more recent work, like the follow-up to this movie, and especially recently with *Malignant*, you can see that Wan has sort of a silly side to his storytelling, and it wasn't as present in the first *Insidious*. And I wonder if that was what was going on here. Even with the writing in later installments, things just start to fall apart for the sake of keeping the story going. I mean, Elise is ultimately the hero of the *Insidious* franchise, but she gets killed off at the end of the first movie, so it makes sense that they would have to write around that plot hole by doing prequels and even bringing her back as Ghost Elise. This is a series I'd really like to explore more on the Dissection at a future date, mostly because I feel like this movie just gets bashed into a parody of itself in future installments, which makes it infinitely easier to write jokes to. But we'll see what happens in the future. Well, anyways, wait, yo, who the fuck is this guy? Oh hey me, what you doing here? Not much to say, huh? Did you eat too many edibles again?